So in the week following the 2024 election, there was what I now refer to as the Great Migration left, where the left first left their damn minds and then they lost their damn minds and then they left their family members, their friends, etc., who did not vote the way they essentially wanted them to vote. Simple as that. As a matter of fact, there were individuals who didn't vote at all that lost family members, that lost lifelong friends, and things of that nature because they did not go with the propaganda machine. The propaganda machine said, you need to vote for this woman that came out of nowhere, was not actually elected into her position, was not chosen even by her party, but instead was just kind of ousted there after the cooing of Joe Carcass Biden. And if you don't vote for her, you're sexist, racist, misogynist, and you want fascism, right? That's pretty much how that went down. And so, in that week following, I had a meteoric rise on TikTok for all the best or all the worst reasons, I guess. First and foremost, it was best because I felt free enough to finally express my opinions. And the worst because of the responses that I saw, or more specifically, the stories that I heard of people who had voted for Trump or chosen not to vote at all, or those who simply said, let's kumbaya, we can find some middle ground since this is the result of the election. These individuals shared stories with me time after. I mean, I'm talking about hundreds of comments on specific videos where people were expressing how their mothers, their aunties, their lifelong best friends. I myself actually have an older brother. I don't speak on him much because, I don't tend to just drag my family into things just because. However, this is my story to tell. The day before the election, close to 2 days before the election, I let my brother know, look, this is how I'm voting, etc. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm simply expressing this just so you know, right? Me and my brothers haven't talked politics in years, but the last time we did, it was kind of a blowout. This was during the time when I was finally starting to research for myself, etc. I wasn't even considered right-leaning, etc. I was still kind of a Democrat. It's just I was now seeing how the media was lying to me about this man they called DJT, aka Donald Django Trump. And so I was questioning things and I was looking to have some sort of discussions, not in the public sphere, but in the confines of my own family. And there was a Christmas where me and my brother got into a huge blowout argument. And from that day on, I kind of just, I reclused. Like I just, started to suppress that aspect of myself and said, you know what, maybe it's better off for me not to talk about these things. And I was okay with that. But, as far as he's concerned, that's not necessarily the way that he's built. I'm not really built like that either. It's just I've been so used to suppressing things, walking on eggshells, being the person that made everybody else comfortable, which is why I'm so the opposite now, right? It's like it felt like a lifetime of things I was holding on to that I have to express them. And I hope you do the same for yourself, that you're now living a life where you are continuously walking on eggshells. But anyway, I sent that message on November 3rd or 4th, can't remember which exact day. And he sent a message back essentially saying like he basically wants distance. So I thought to myself, okay, that's up to you. But I knew what that meant. I knew exactly what that meant. Now, that was a much more tame version. And honestly, there's a lot more context around it that I'm not, going to out everybody else's business in this way. But it's simply because he didn't want to express how he actually felt about it, because he is a quite far left leaning as far as the last time I checked, far left leaning into a lot of the woke ideology and consider himself some sort of activist or whatever maybe, and surrounds himself with those type of individuals, which is perfectly fine. I don't care. That's kind of the difference, right? Is there weren't plenty of Trump supporters who left their family members in 2020. There weren't a plethora of people being threatened, like their lives being threatened, their livelihoods being threatened, whatever it was. There wasn't the same outcry. It's not to say that there wasn't retaliation. Everybody loves to talk about the insurrection, but I'm talking about at a scale level. I'm talking about millions of people who are experiencing, broken families. Like, don't forget that in Kamala's campaign, there was a commercial with George Clooney and what's her name, Julia Roberts, where they were telling women to essentially lie to their husbands about who they're voting for. They were pushing a message of discord within the household because they were so desperate to get votes. Ladies, you can vote for who you want. It's okay. You don't have to share that. Why would you have to hide it? If you're not embarrassed with who you're voting for, why would you have to hide that opinion? Unless obviously you were, a Trump supporter in 2016, then you had to hide it. Otherwise, you likely to be canceled, beat up in public. People were spit on for wearing MAGA hats, things of that nature. These things are reality. There's video footage of these things, okay? So we get to 2024 and we find ourselves in a place where obviously DJT wins by a landslide. The only places he essentially doesn't win by a landslide is everywhere where there was no voter ID necessary. Places like California, where I'm from. I walked right into that center, gave him my vote, didn't have to show a damn thing. Seriously. I wanted to show, I'm the type of dude to be like, don't you want to see my identification? Don't you want to? No. Just give us your vote. So the man wins by a landslide. And of course, there is the outroar, the outcry, the social media displays of simple outrage and insanity that took place the next day, which was very entertaining. That part was very entertaining. But then the aftermath of that was, again, people now cutting off their family members. I never want to see you again. And the amount of messages I got from mothers speaking on their daughters was heartbreaking for me. It's like, damn, you lost your daughter because you didn't fall for, a scam, scamala. You didn't fall for a scam. You lost a daughter because she was so deeply propagandized. Because that's what really happened, right? These people were saying that Trump is a racist, a sexist, a homophobe, a fascist, etc. These were made up things. These were just talking points. This was messaging that was being pushed. Lies that were already refuted back in 2016, 17, 18. Oh, these are fine people. The white supremacists are fine people. You can look anywhere and see that that was never said. That they literally clipped an entire piece of it. I mean, CBS is right now under litigation because they chopped up Kamala's interview during the presidential race. Oops. George Stephanopoulos, ABC, aka Disney, because that's the parent company, had to pay $15 million because of the defamation suit where George Stephanopoulos continued to say that Trump was an apeist, and that was a lie. There was no conviction of ape. That was a lie. That was propaganda. But yet you go through your comment section and every other one of these far leftists, you voted for apist. You voted for apist. So people lost family members. People got uninvited from Thanksgivings. And like I said, it wasn't the other way around. Because frankly, like I realized when I was making the transition from left to right, when I was on the left, nobody really cared on the right, like what my opinions were, etc. As soon as I made a transition more right-leaning, I was attacked. I mean, I lost 1,500 followers in the span of around 3 days from November 4th to around November 6th, 7th, right? 1,500 followers on IG. Now, if I had come out and say, I support Kamala, I may have lost a handful here or there. But the Republicans never really cared. It was only the left who cared once I left the Democratic plantation, especially as a quote unquote black man. I unsubscribed from my dogma, from my religion, from the cult. And because I was no longer subscribed to the culture, they believed I was subscribed to the cult. They never even asked me because I used to create more relationship content, mindset, things of that nature, right? Believing that these people were receiving the message of personal agency, personal responsibility, self-respect, etc. Not knowing that I was actually communicating with a bunch of psychos, with a bunch of narcissists, individuals who were so self-obsessed that when I was speaking these things, they were probably thinking, oh, somebody else needs to hear this. No, I was speaking to you. I was speaking to them. I was saying, you need to take responsibility. Stop blaming everybody for the outcomes of your life, etc. These sorts of things. So I'm thinking to myself, these align with the principles of, a little more moderate or right-leaning values. The far left is the complete opposite. But it was a rude awakening once I actually, displayed that I would not be voting for Kamala. Once that came, folks, once that part manifested, Oh, it was a wrap. Brother, gone. I mean, I already have aunties and stuff like that who just, they put me on ice, but I'm used to that. I'm okay with that. Like, I don't lose sleep over these things. I really don't. Because I'm at a place where I say, if you love me for who I am, that's a wonderful thing. If you can't love me for who I am, that's on you. I'm not going to love you any different because of your politics. I don't even want to go there with you. But if we're going to have the conversation, then so be it. And again, the justification is, well, because you voted for a person who's a racist, a misogynist. So where? Where have your rights gone? Trump has now been president for how long? He's officially been president for about 15 or so days and has done more in 100 days than most of his predecessors did in, no, he's done more in 100 hours than most of his predecessors did in 100 days. Positive action, positive reinforcement, putting Americans first. The government's actual job to put its own citizenry before everybody else or their own personal pockets, their own self-interest, right? But this man was pushed as being some sort of fascist leader, little mustache man, homophobic, sexist, this, that, and the third. And it's gotten real old. Oh, he's an apist. Oh, he's a convicted felon. On a case, the only case that actually went through, which they were using as lawfare, as the rest of it obviously was, it was a Frankenstein sort of case where they just patched things together just to get something through the door. I talked to accountants. They leave messages on my content. They said this was such a bogus case. It was literally a stupid case that nobody else outside of this position would have even gotten charged for. But because you voted for Trump, because you voted against the machine, because that was the machine, it's the machine that did not choose based off of anything besides this is the puppet that is best fitting. That's what Kamala was. That's what Joe was. That's what that machine is. Trump is the people's choice because in spite of all the media propaganda, more than 90% of that media propaganda is of the left. Let's be honest, right? Oh, but they have the billionaires. Okay, Elon, the wealthiest man in the world who transitioned, who used to be a lefty. He used to be woke. He was a Bernie guy. Now you have Elon switching over. But the rest of the billionaires, don't forget it, before Trump won, there was no Bezos. Bezos was pushing propaganda through his Wall Street Journal. Don't forget that, well, still Bill and the rest of those demons, but don't forget that Mark only came out after Trump wins. Don't you forget that. Billionaires were always on the left, the Soros of the world. The people elected Trump, the sane people, the common sensed people. Oh, but the uneducated, you mean undoctrinated? Unindoctrinated folks voted for DJT because they could see through the BS, especially those who look like me or, of some other ethnicity that is used as a pawn of the Democratic plantation. For you to see through the ruse, you had to be a counterculture mother. You had to be a rebel within your own space, right? We saw the shifts of Native Americans. We saw the shift of the Amish people. We saw a shift of Hispanics. We saw a large shift of black folk, even though that was majoritively Kamala's voter base. But my point of all this is to say this. If you lost family over this, you didn't really lose a damn thing because you're dealing with unstable individuals. If somebody is so given over to a cult that they're willing to cut the relationship with you, that's on them. Genuinely. If somebody can't love you for who you are, if they can't at least acknowledge that, okay, you got your own values, I got my own, and just leave it at that, that's no loss. I didn't lose a friend, a best friend, if they left me because of something so petty. If they left me because of something they weren't even willing to research, they're not even willing to look into. I didn't have to cut off the lefties. I didn't have to cut off the quote unquote liberals and the activists. I didn't. They did it themselves. All I had to do was start researching for myself and having a different opinion, and they did the work. They cut me off. And again, there's a justification of, well, you voted for an immoral, this, that, and third. Okay, let's put facts to facts. What did Joe Biden do? What did he do? He funneled your money into everybody else's pockets. He did that. He gave you less than he gave people all across this damn planet. He gave more to a war that he had no business even touching than he gave to you and your grandmama. He did that. He did pardon not just Fauci ouchie, but he did pardon his son when he lied about it for 4 years straight that he wouldn't use his powers to do so. We wouldn't be mad if you just said it straight up, I'm going to use this power to pardon my son. But his guilty son was pardoned along with multitudes of other family members, along with multitudes of other hardened criminals. He did that. He actually did that. And we want to talk about morality. He actually is sniffing them little kids in front of them cameras. He actually did. This is away from conspiracy. He did this. And I could go through an entire host, and I will. I'm going to go through a video that's just Joe Biden's actual legacy. Joe Biden's true legacy. He left behind him a trail of nothing but chaos and disaster, or at least his handlers did. Because as we know now, it wasn't really Joe. It was the machine that, presented itself as Joe, the aides and staffers and, the rest of those jokers in that party. So when you cut off somebody because they voted for Trump during this last election, what you're really saying is, I hate common sense. I hate truth. I hate to see things exactly how they are. And instead, I'd rather live in a delusion. And the person who is not conforming to your own cult-like ideology has now become a disturbance to your own illusion. They're now effing with your own ability to dig your head into the sand and to not actually see what the hell is going on. You want to be finessed. You want to be taken advantage of. You want to have twerkers on stage be the representation for you. That's what you want if first of all, you were a supporter and voting for this damn person, but also you then cut your family members off. You don't want to have Christmas. I saw, this girl, and she was genuine in her pain, but it just showed how far the propaganda machine has pushed some of these mentally unstable people. She was crying about how Donald Trump is the reason why she could never talk to her dad. She was bawling tears. You could tell her dad is her best friend. I can't talk to my dad because I hate you so much, Trump. I hate you. And I'm thinking to myself, Trump didn't tell you to cut your daddy off. You did. And the people of your so-called party did. The joyless Reeds and such who are up there with the so-called therapist saying, oh yeah, this Christmas or this whatever, it's okay to distance. It's okay to cut off those people who voted for that fascist. If you lost family during this last election cycle, please know that you lost nothing. There are going to be many who return, and oftentimes they return because, a point of desperation, a loneliness, or whatever it is. But there's also a host of them who are going to return because they actually come to the truth. They actually come to understand that, wait, I've been disillusioned. I've been in a cult. Ain't nothing like realizing that you've been in a cult. Nothing like it. And once you open your eyes to it and you can't unsee what you've seen, you are now unburdened by what has been. Family members will reunite, etc., but there will also be a group who will never return. They are given over to it. They will live and die by it. It's like having somebody who's an addict. In some cases, that person is simply going to be exactly that. They're going to stay an addict. That's going to be their life path. And they will live and die in their addiction. And you have to be able to separate yourself from it because you can't save nobody. That's never been your job. Your job is to speak truth in love. But even me, I'm not here to save a damn person. I hope that I can get stories 5, 10, 15 years later that say, hey, I hated your guts. I thought you were a sellout. I thought you were white supremacist. I thought you were this, that, and third. But thank you, because you at least created an avenue for me to be able to hear an alternative opinion to what I've been saturating myself with. There's many individuals in the beginning of my journey. I remember listening to more and more conservative voices, and I felt like somebody said in my comments, it felt like a little kid watching corn or something, like something you're not supposed to be watching. And I thought to myself, like, damn, those people were right. I hated half of their guts. If I was to listen to a Thomas Sowell early on, I would have thought he was a sellout. that he was, anti-black, all this sort of stuff, all the rhetoric they're using, agent of white supremacy. I would have thought he was all of that. But at this turn, he's one of America's greatest minds. He is a brilliant man. He is a factual man. And more importantly, he is a courageous man who just said it exactly how it is. And that's what I plan to and commit myself to being. And if people around me fall to the wayside, so be it. If they want to leave me, I'm not left, I'm right.
I used to be afraid of the dark, place unknown like a heart in their heart. I used to see my life in the bar. Now the kids unchained, every shackle is lost. 2 steps in the moonlight, 2 step in the daytime. You just know when it feel right. You got a feeling the time's not. See you through those shades that I just threw on. Through my lenses, you just can't do no wrong. I fell in love with myself again. I fell in love with myself. I fell in love with the sunshine. I fell in love with the light. I fell in love with the full moon. I fell in love with the night. I can see the light again. I can see the light. You can see the life in him illuminate the night. I know the time is taking. A 3-6-5, that's a full rotation. I see you looking up, you know them constellations. Constantly gazing like house of praises, you get to praising.